and welcome to the Krewe of Japan podcast, a weekly podcast where we take you on audio journeys through Japanese culture. Welcome back to our podcast. Today we are dusting off our wrestling boots as we step into the audio version of the Squared Circle with Gato Move's own rising star, Baliyan Akki, to talk about Japanese pro wrestling. In part one of a two-part episode series, Jen and I sit down with Akki to hear about what got him into professional wrestling.
The starting point of me even trying to become a WWE dude at that point, and I'm saying the WWE dude because I didn't know the word wrestler at that point. I'm like even the starting point has to be in a place where I'm in enough close proximity and know enough people in that business and from that place that I can at least get there.
How he built his own promotion in India.
So I started traveling again all over India to find a place where I can debut and can wrestle. Didn't find any, so I was lucky that I met a dude named Vinayak from India. He has worked before with WWE, with merchandise, and he wanted to be a promoter. Now I have a lead.
And how he inevitably ended up in his dream landing spot in Japan.
It took me 2 years just to have enough documentation that I can apply again. 6 more months for the process of applying for the visa, and in 2.5 years after I first got denied my visa, I was finally able to travel to Japan.
Anyone who loves a feel-good story about paving your own way to your dream career will absolutely love this inspirational but also very funny conversation with Akki. Well, there's the bell. Match is about to start. Sit back and enjoy. All right, and we are back with our Krewe of Japan podcast episode about Japanese wrestling. And we are thrilled to have with us today rising superstar out of Gato Move, or maybe you know from ChocoPro on YouTube, Baliyan Akki. Akki, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very, very much for having me, first and foremost. And thank you for introducing me as not the upcoming or soon to be or anything. You called me a rising star, which is, as you know, everybody, Japan is the land of the rising sun. I'm happy to be introduced that way.
There you go.
Thank you.
Well, I'm glad I did you justice. You do some fantastic work. I started catching you on Twitter when I first found out about you, but we're going to get into that later. Before we jump into all of our wrestling stuff, we have a question that we ask all of our guests on our podcast, and that is, if you have one, a connection to New Orleans. Now, when I say New Orleans, a lot of times, maybe you've been here, maybe you haven't, or you've at least heard of it. If you've never been before, what is the first thing you think of when it comes to when someone says New Orleans? But if you have been to New Orleans, what is your most unique or fondest memory?
Yes. As for New Orleans, I've never been there. I don't think I have any particular strong image of it. But Recently, you could say a few of my wrestling friends have moved to Orlando.
Okay.
It's not close. I don't think it's close. Is it close? Is it very far? I don't know.
It's like a 9-hour drive.
It's in the grand scheme of America. It's not far.
So then, okay.
About an hour and a half flight. Yeah.
So it must have been because I confused the two. One of my friends went to New Orleans, I think, the first time he contacted me when he was in Orlando. So in my head, it must have been connected he's just going to just out. But he was in New Orleans, so sorry about that. That is my only connection. Because that's the first time he talked to me. When he went to do a show. And it was oh yeah, I'm when he moved there, the first time he contacted me, he was busy right away. So he in 2 days he just went to do a show, and he just contacted me oh, I'm in New Orleans. So somehow, some way, the memory stored in my head, as in he's next door for some reason. Okay. So when I contacted him, hey, how's America? He's yeah, I'm in New Orleans. I'm oh, all right.
Okay.
Then it was
That's cool. All right.
And also, Amy Sakura, whenever she goes to New Orleans, uploads stuff. So most of what I have seen from New Orleans has been from Amy Sakura's Twitter, her Instagram stories, and whatever. If she calls me from there, all the Oh, I could legit say this. My only connection to New Orleans is Ami Sakura. You could say because I've seen her stories and like her everything she does whenever she goes there. She goes to the aquariums and stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah. That's right by the river, right near the French Quarter. So whenever you do come to New Orleans for a wrestling show, when you're
All right.
headlining in an international event in a pay-per-view, when you come to New Orleans, we'll show you around. How about that?
Ah, fantastic. That'd be nice. That'd be
There
really
you
nice.
go. All right. So that's awesome. And I'm glad you had some connection because some people like they have very unique images of New Orleans, like either jazz music or Mardi Gras, which is like a big festival here that we have every year. So it's interesting to hear like very unique takes on like when they hear New Orleans, what is actually their connection. So that's a first one.
Like you could also say that one of the reasons is okay. I don't really have a connection with America. Well, one of the reasons being like America came to my consciousness, like even to my notice for the first time because of wrestling. Like
Yeah.
the thing I really love that is the biggest part of American culture, you could say, is wrestling. You could also say Hollywood, but Hollywood is a part of every culture. Like they are at this point in every country. Like it's my movies. Like everybody loves Marvel movies. Like it's their own movies. Like it
Yeah.
doesn't matter if they come from America. It really. I don't think anybody thinks that the Marvel movies comes from America. It's a world movie. But wrestling, WWE or independent, all of it is very American. Like American independent wrestling is very American. So to me, the biggest culture thing I know about America is actually like professional wrestling. So that's why I had a strong image of let's just say New York because of their independency. I have a strong image of California because let's just say mostly because of PWG. Or I have a strong image of let's just say when ROH did the ECW arena or something. So like those things I have a strong image of. But if it has like a super wrestling, like a strong wrestling scene, then it stucks to my head.
There
Other
you
than
go.
that, I don't really know too much about like actual America. You
Well,
could
that
say.
kind of leads into our next question because usually we ask people about their Japan journey and what brought them to Japan. But I think for this episode, and you kind of already touched on it, we may be better suited to asking like what got you into wrestling and what made you actually want to be a wrestler. So would you mind speaking to
Oh
that a
yeah,
little
of course,
bit?
of course. I don't know if I have said this before, but like you could genuinely say what got me into wrestling was mostly stupidity. Like just in
Oh god.
just in that's probably is going to be the theme of this interview. If you keep asking me how I started or how I got where I am, it's mostly going to be the theme of it. But like one of the strong things, even to this day, I talk to people in Japan and like wrestlers and even fans is that like wrestling is very big in India. Let's just start there. It's very big, and when something is big in India, it's really big because even to this day, 1 out of every 6 person in this world lives in my country
Yeah.
and is my countryman. 1 of every 6, just randomly. So it's genuinely is huge. And I realized how big that is when I started traveling outside, like when I went to Europe or Japan or other Asian countries. I really realized, oh, that place is bonkers. I genuinely realized it once I left India. But after cricket, which is it's a religion, forget about sports. So after that, wrestling, which is WWE, is the biggest sports you could say. The most popular second sport in India is wrestling. Is But the thing is, nobody really knows wrestling. Nobody even knows the name pro wrestling. If I say pro wrestling, everybody thinks of Olympic wrestling. So if I have to convey to somebody that who I am, I'm a wrestler, I have to say, "Do you know WWE?" And they go, "Of course." And I go, "That's what I do." And they go, dude," and then they just really go for it. But the wrestling means WWE. That's what it is. Nobody even knows that you're supposed to do it. It's like movies.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like that's why the image, or that's why John Cena or Rock or Roman Reigns now or any top guy in WWE, there's no difference between him and like let's just say Robert Downey Jr. or between him and like any big Hollywood star, Arnold or Sylvester Stallone from the old days, or if we're talking about now, like Michael B. Jordan, and like anything that we see on our screen, because that's the only connection we have with it. It's not a live thing. Nobody sees wrestling live. Nobody knows how they do become that. You only see
Yeah.
them for 2 hours every week, maybe more, because of SmackDown and Raw both together now. It's like 4 to 5 hours, and you see them. They have, and WWE has like dramas. They have, storylines, and there's like backstage happening. There's lovers. There's betrayals. There's friend growing crazy. So what's the difference between that and a Hollywood movie? To
Yeah.
me, they just show up on TV. So the connection between those two is so strong that just for a normal wrestling fan in India, it's the same thing. It was the same thing for me. I didn't like consciously make that connection, but they looked the same to me. And when you think of that, like when you see let's just say you a Marvel movie, you don't think you're gonna be Iron Man. Like you want to be, and it might be a childish dream of yours, but that's not a realistic dream. When you
Yeah.
see a Hollywood movie, your first thing is not that I wanna be that actor, right? The same thing
Right.
happens in wrestling. It's hard to imagine yourself being a wrestler when the only thing you know of as wrestler is just a movie star who shows up on your TV
Yeah.
every week. And even if but of course internet became stronger and stronger, and people know more now. You can find, you can search. But when I was starting, even internet wasn't strong. Like I remember buying my first ever phone I bought was a Samsung full screen. So that's what they used to call it, like a touch screen. So they would
Yeah.
call it full screen or touch screen at that point. And it's because it was India, like the internet was a little late, especially coming to like younger ages or like countryside. Because I'm from like Delhi's countryside, and I lived in a boarding school. So I
Oh,
wasn't
okay.
in like I started like I'm a boarding school kid. I started when I was 11. So I would show up at home every summer break, and that's it. So because of that, I'm not too connected to the outside world. I think that's why I don't connect with India so much, because I didn't like really grow up in like a whole community thing. I just grew up in like a bubble of 500 kids who are from age 11 to 18, and that's like my thing. But I couldn't really search, even when I wanted, if the idea of becoming a wrestler came to me, and I don't know when that really came to me. Like how can you be a wrestler? There's no answer to that question. Okay, I want to wrestle, but do I have to go to that place to wrestle? Is that the only place where wrestling is? But forget about that. Like I didn't even know the word wrestling. I only knew what they do looks super fun, and can I be a person who can get there to do what they do? So if you want to be a wrestler, the only place that you can imagine wrestling is WWE. Like that's the level we're talking about, right? That's the pros. That's the highest
Mm-hmm.
level, especially at that point, because now there's AEW, there's you can go to Japan. That's the open path now. I did. But at that point, WWE was the thing,
Yeah.
right? Even New Japan hasn't risen then. I'm talking about 2012, like 15 when New Japan really rose.
So there weren't any like small schools or anything like that in India that you could even go
No.
to. Like here, I know you just go to a gymnasium. Like we have like a local, like small indie promotion in New Orleans called Wildcat, and
Oh, I've heard of
you
it.
can go and train there. But I mean, we have places in this U.S. where people are just like wrestling on plywood in a backyard, like breaking
Yeah,
legs. Oh, there's so many videos you've probably seen them, on YouTube and stuff.
backyard wrestling. That's
Yeah,
a
yeah,
name.
and you just go to these other smaller indie shows and you try to like introduce yourself and try to get in. Like there's like a whole networking process.
Yeah.
I feel like that people I think in the U.S. take for granted for sure.
Oh no, I don't think people take it for granted. Like imagine, let's say I live in Japan now, right?
Hmm.
If I go out and I see a ramen restaurant, I don't take it for granted. It's just the fact that I live in Japan. Of course, there are ramen restaurants. Like
Yeah,
that's part of the culture, and I genuinely feel wrestling, pro wrestling especially, is a part of the American culture,
yeah.
right? Like I've seen people do like I don't care where you are in what sport or where you are. If you do the woo, everybody else will answer.
Well, they play at basketball games too. They play
Yes,
at football games,
like no matter
basketball
where you
games.
are, you don't have to
Yeah,
practice. You don't have to say it, and you just go woo, and everybody else goes do their part.
yeah,
That's how much of a wrestling, like just a your like just a genuine social culture, you could say. The country, its culture is embedded with wrestling. Like it's a part of it. When I don't know when I really thought about becoming a wrestler. I just thought it was the best thing. Like I genuinely
Mhm.
remember thinking this is the best entertainment because like they had everything. I started watching like back catalog. I started watching the Attitude Era. I watched all of the matches of like Stone Cold and The Rock and like Jericho and like that mid. I really loved those mid sections of like Rey Mysterio, Eddie
Mhm.
Guerrero, Noble, Tajiri, and they had like a mid card that was so good at one
Yeah.
point. I watched all those matches, so I started like just genuinely consuming as much wrestling as I could, and I genuinely thought it was the best entertainment. And I genuinely remember thinking that. Then internet came, and then I started like just random. Just, I don't even know if I consciously made the effort to like find out what they do. I just thought. I remember one time when I was in like I think first year of my high school. I was 15, I think, or maybe 1 year before. I was talking to my cousin who, like I said, a very smart dude. My boarding school was a hard thing to get into, so literally everybody around me was quite smart. But he was talking to me like, "Oh, I'm thinking about going to like a very hard university, but my grades aren't like." We were just having like a normal talk to talk. Because high school is starting, and then in India, first year of high school is where you choose what genre of studies you're going to do. Are you going to go with sciences or social studies, or you're going to go with commerce, which is business? So in first year of high school, you do that. So we are talking about which side you want to go to, like what do you want to choose as your future. And I go, he's very proper to me, talking to me like, oh, I'm thinking about going to sciences, but I don't think my grades are a bit down, so I might have to go to business because I don't want to go to social studies. Like, he's like very properly consulting with me, and I go, if I really go crazy someday, if I didn't have to worry, if there was a thing where like I could just throw caution to the wind, the hardest thing I can imagine myself doing is deciding to be like one of the WWE guys. I remember saying it to him, and it because I said it out loud, like outside, it really like stuck to me even to this day because I don't think I've ever said that before. Because to me, I like I actually and he was like, what? And I go, but that's the hardest thing I can imagine trying to be. And you go, what, the WWE thing? And I'm gonna go, yeah. Because even if I choose to be an astronaut, I know how to be an astronaut. Like if I
Yeah.
choose to go to space, if I choose to, let's just say, go to the highest college in India, if I chose to be the best engineer, if I chose to be the goddamn president of India, I know how to be that. I know where to start. I know the road. I know how to get there. I know people who can help me get there. Like I know enough people in almost every path of life that I can imagine myself working hard and going through the process of becoming that. And I go, I have no idea how to be one of those WWE dudes. And he go, yeah, that's true. How do you become a WWE dude? I'm like, I don't know. The starting point of me even trying to become a WWE dude at that point, and I'm saying the WWE dude because I didn't know the word wrestler at that point. I'm like the even the starting point has to be in a place where I'm in enough close proximity and enough know enough people in that business and from that place that I can at least get there. And they're like, yeah, that has to be the starting point. I'm like, I don't even know how to get there. Like I have no path to it. And they go, yeah. And the fact that if I chose to be in this path of becoming a wrestler, it's going to be the hardest thing I can imagine doing. I think that's the biggest reason I became a wrestler.
So you did have to leave India to do that, though, right?
Oh yes.
Yeah. So where did you end up going?
Before that, because in my high school I had good grades, I did, but like I didn't apply for any colleges or anything. And my parents were like, why aren't you doing anything? And I go, I think I'm gonna be a wrestler. And they go, what is a wrestler? And I go, do you know the thing you see every week? And like, yeah, my family used to love wrestling too. They don't anymore. Ever since I started wrestling, they stopped watching wrestling because
Oh.
and it's not because they like hate me being a wrestler. It's just that if they watch wrestling, they know what I'm going through, and they don't like it.
Oh, I can
Ah.
They're
understand
like,
that. Yeah.
oh, like somebody gets hit with a chair. Oh, Aki is getting hit with a chair somewhere as well. but they don't want to make that connection because they see people getting beat up every week for 2 hours,
Yeah.
and they're like, but ever since I became a wrestler, my all my parents, my aunts, my uncles, nobody nobody watches wrestling anymore because they're like, oh, that's the first thing the first thing that comes to my head when I see somebody getting beat up is like, ah, Aki's getting beat up somewhere as well. So I don't want to have that image, so they don't watch wrestling anymore, which is terrible. But I left my school and then I just searched India because there are rumors and like you can be by that point I know the word wrestler, by the way, because I'm like, oh, I want to be somebody, and they're like, oh, they score wrestling, and I'm like, okay. So then I found, oh, it's called pro wrestling. Oh, okay. Maybe there's a difference or something because I'm searching on internet like crazy at this point. So there are rumors every now and there because we have like crazy fans in India that you can go there and be a wrestler. So I just for 6 months after my school, I just traveled India. Because there would be a rumor in Calcutta, which is the south of India, and it's like 1.5 day by train, and they would be like, "Oh, you can wrestle here," and I go there, and they just Olympic wrestling dangle style mat. I'm like, "This is not wrestling. You're just doing wrestling." I'm like, "Yeah, sorry." And then I would just travel back home, and then I would go to Delhi. I would go to Maharashtra, just the center of India. I just traveled for 6 months, every place I could go to. Like anybody had any rumor that there's a place where you can be a wrestler, I would just go there. 6 months passed. It's December now because I graduated in April, and it's like around October now. And there's one dude who goes, "Oh, you can be a wrestler here," and I go, "Oh, it's in Punjab. That's the part of India where you speak Punjabi, and it's a, but it's not too far from you could say from where I used to live." So I traveled there, and there's a fan who had a ring because he loved WWE so much. He had made a ring. He made that in India, of course, but he contacted somebody and he got like a plan, and he had talked to like an engineer in his hometown, and he had a ring.
That's
It's
great.
like it's like quite a big as well. It's like a 20 by 20 ring. Very bad shape, but still, it's a ring. So now I know a place which has a ring, which is the closest thing I could find to WWE up until that point. And I just moved to Jalandhar, Punjab, where the dude used to live, and I just gave him money to rent his ring every day for the next 1.5 years, and that's how I became a wrestler.
That's cool. That's cool. So, so prior to coming to Japan, were there any other countries that you traveled to?
Oh yes. I actually started a promotion when I was 19
Oh, did
because
you?
yes, because there was no promotion for me to wrestle in. Like I started training, and I was very lucky. There was a dude named Zorro. His name is Zorawar Singh Jamwal. His name is Zorawar, which is a very hard name. But I always called him Zorro because I just watched the movie Zorro, I think 1 year prior when I met him. But his name was Zorawar. I just started calling him Zorro. He's from like the upper part, the northmost part of India, which is called Jammu and Kashmir. A very beautiful place. But I was very lucky that he met the dude 2 days after I met him. So like I'm in Punjab, and he goes like, "Oh, you can, of course I'll rent you out, but who are you gonna practice with? There's nobody else." And I go, "Yeah, that's true." So I'm just watching the city for the next 2 days, and Zorawar shows up just randomly to the dude, like leave one day and the next morning prior, the evening I'm supposed to come back, and the dude calls me, "Hey, another dude showed up to like be to practice," and he says he wants to run the place as well. And I go, "Okay, just let me talk to him." And we started talking, and I moved to Punjab the next month, and we started just training together, and there were just two
Cool.
of us for 1 year and a half. So I started training when I was like 17 and a half. I just graduated from high school when I was like 17 something. And before I turned 18, I started training. So I was like 19 and a half. And I'm like 1 year and a half now. I train 6 days a week, 3 times a day, one cardio, two ring sessions. And that's all I do all
Whew.
day, every day. I don't know any other life. I was so obsessed at that point because the possibility of me being able to be a wrestler was so dim that I didn't give myself anything. I almost became psychotic at this point. That's what I said. The theme of this interview is going to be stupidity. I told you beforehand, so be ready. But it's just in genuine. I only know, like, I lived in that city in Jalandhar for 1 year, I think 20 months in total. And I know two people in that city, only two. One is my landlord, and one is the dairy dude who I used to get my like the convenience store manager of my close to my home. And those are the only two people outside of Zorro who I used to practice with. In that, I genuinely don't. I haven't talked to anybody in that city in 20 months. I would just show up, buy my things, wake up at 6, train the whole day, sleep, and the next day thing. But by the time I'm over in like 14 months, I started to realize I by then in that 1.5 month, that by the way, 1.5 year, you could say the 20 months, the 18 months, you could say. I discovered independent wrestling. I discovered Japan. I didn't even know there was wrestling outside of America before
Oh,
I started training without even doing like real research because there's internet out there. I could find stuff if I wanted to, but I was just so like single-mindedly like tunnel visioned because
yeah.
the task was so humongous to me that I didn't even like try to do anything. I'm like, okay, I just figure out how to get there at this point. Let me just get started. And Zoro was a big fan of like King's Road of the Japan side. He was a big fan of old Japan, old school, like Misawa and Kenta Kobashi, and that those just the whole King's Road. Odo, which is called in Japanese, by the way, Odo Purus. So he was a big fan of it, and because of us, we really started to realize a lot of things. And also because we have to, because there's nobody teaching us. So how do we be a wrestler? So we just find videos of people doing seminars, people doing drills, and we would just watch videos back. He was a big fan of Marty Jannetty, and he would do like the British style. And I used to really became a big fan of the Japanese side of wrestling, and got like New Japan videos, old school, them doing drills in dojos, and we do the same drills and stuff like that. It's a crazy process, but the whole thing of me doing that, I realized like no matter how much I train, I can't debut because there's no promotion in India where I can debut. So I stopped after 20 months. I'm like, okay, let me just focus on trying to wrestle because I can wrestle now. I know I can wrestle now. I don't know if I'm good, but I can. I know I can at least. I've been training for it for 20 months now. So I came back. I left Jalandhar and I started traveling one more time because there were rumors that people are starting wrestling companies. Same rumors that we have school. So I started traveling again all over India to like find a place where I can debut and can wrestle. Didn't find any. So I was lucky that I met a dude named Vinayak from India. He has worked before with WWE, with merchandise, and he wanted
Okay.
to be a promoter. Now I have a lead.
There you go.
Now I have a lead. And I go, but he don't know wrestling. He didn't know how to be like same thing with me before I started training. He don't know the wrestling part of it. He wants to be a promoter and he wants to do wrestling in India. And I go, I can. And then we just shake hand and I was, I think, 19 and a half, and I started a promotion called Russell Square, which to this day, by the way, is runs. We have a dojo, we have a ring. We actually did a TV show of 12 episodes in
That's cool.
2019. Yeah, we really found like a stride. We worked hard. We were on the same network which telecasted ROH and New Japan in India, and we did a 12 episode series. We actually made like a TV show, got a studio and
Oh,
everything.
cool.
So they are still doing it, but I started that promotion and we started doing shows. We would travel some city in India every month once, and we would do shows. But now I think finally I did a long. That's the longest segue ever. But uh, the reason I wanted to come to Japan, and what got me interested to Japan was because I didn't have competition in India. I had sports in my family. Quite a lot. My father used to be at one point used to do wrestling, like Olympic style wrestling. Gave up on it because of family. My big brother was a national player at volleyball. My cousin. So I had sports in my family, and I was talking to my cousin when I started wrestling in India. I had a promotion of my own. I had a company, but that also becomes like because when you're a wrestler, all you want to do is get better. That's not my
Yeah.
problem. My problem is logistics. My problem is renting the truck to because like it's not like I can just do wrestling in my own town. I have to travel like thousands of kilometers to go to a city where
Right.
somebody wants to do wrestling and found a sponsor, found a supporter, or found a partner which I can shake hands with and do shows with. I have to go there. I have to set the stage because nobody knows how to set the stage. You don't realize it's not just that we don't have a wrestling culture. We don't have a live culture. There's no concerts, live concerts. There's no like we don't have a culture of paying other than movies to go there, buy tickets, and watch somebody do something live
For anything,
for
or
anything.
just oh
No,
wow,
for
okay,
anything. We don't have that culture to go out and watch something live today. Because the biggest live culture is two things. I think in America it's three. It's live music, stand-up comedy, and wrestling. Those are the biggest thing other than sports. Because
yeah,
everybody goes to sports. Everybody goes to cricket.
yeah,
But the people in India, people go and buy tickets and watch. The only thing that they do for is cricket. But cricket, it
okay,
doesn't even register in people's mind that cricket is a sport. It's just a thing. You just go do it. It's not something that, like, I don't think it even registers the fact that you're trying to go watch it live because you want to see it live. So the culture of like watching something live isn't there. So we're trying to create that to get people to like pay, let's just say 100 or 200 or 500 rupees and come and watch us live, pay tickets. We still get big crowds, by the way. The smallest crowd I ever worked in India was 1,000 people.
wow,
The last show I did right before I moved to Japan was an indoor stadium of like 8,000 to like 9,000 people, and we had sold 400 or 4,400 tickets, and we had a 5,000 attendance.
that's
Oh,
great.
that's awesome.
It is great, and Indian crowd is crazy. Believe me, you like people think Chicago is crazy. Chicago is milk mild compared to Indian crowds.
I could imagine.
Oh, I genuinely believe I like it's like one of my dreams. I genuinely want, and I'm 100% going to do this someday. That I want Indian market to be big enough that not foreign wrestlers, foreign fans can experience wrestling in India. Because believe me, you would be scared for your well-being if you are in an Indian crowd. I am not joking. I was a heel
Oh yeah,
at 19 and a half when we started. I've never been a babyface in India. Every match I've wrestled, I had to be the heel because, well, you have to have heels, or it just
yeah,
especially for India because you have to do the most simple form of wrestling because you haven't seen, nobody has seen it yet, right? It's like
yeah,
you're starting with, if the first thing you see is just the craziest single hand like guitar solo, you don't know if there's music in it, right? You have to do
hmm,
simple music first to realize, oh, they're doing music, and then you can do your crazy things. So
yeah,
we're doing the most simple wrestling, and I'm the heel, but they don't know I'm a heel. They don't know heels. They just know this is an asshole. The only thing they think of me because I'm shooting on their town. I'm doing mic, and I'm doing a mic in Hindi, which I think it's hard to convey, and I think Spanish people could understand it way better than English. Hindi is a very personal language. So if I say something bad to you, like I just say I'm an asshole in English, it's not a big deal. It doesn't, like, you don't go back or like he just said, and you don't do that. It's not like English is very you could say like, I love him, right? I
yeah.
can't say that in Hindi. It's so heavy because every word is so personal, and it's so. If I said just randomly that I love him, people are like, what? Like, that's how personal the language is. It's very, especially bad words. The bad words
Yeah.
in Hindi are so bad. Like, you have goosebumps just hearing. That's how bad they are. Believe me, it's very personal, very personal. So I would do mic in Hindi and just shit on everything. I would shit on my opponent. I would shit on the town. I would shit on the kid who's like with his dad in the front row. Yeah, like this will tell you how wild the Indian crowd is. I have been thrown chairs at 3 times in the
Like
ring
thrown
while
into
I'm
the ring
wrestling.
at you.
Into the ring, yes. Just pick up a chair and randomly throw it in the ring. We had bouncer. I've never had a show in India where we didn't have like 8 bouncers around the ring just to stop people from jumping in. And it's not a rare thing that somebody jumped. It's a rare thing when somebody doesn't jump. Yes, it's a wild thing. And the energy is crazy. Like, I would do my entrance, I would show up because I had long hair and I had like shiny leather. Like, my costume was very different. I would stand out a lot. I made that on purpose. And I would walk in, I would just be dancing and stuff, and people were like, yeah, and then there would be one kid, I would just screw him and just walk out, and his dad would be angry. Like that would be the thing. And if like the one time I really felt bad because we had like steel pipe chairs instead of like the normal plastic chairs. And
Yeah.
one dad, because I made fun of his kid while I'm wrestling, because I was just beating my opponent up and I just stopped for a second and just shit on a kid who was like 8 years old in the front row, and his dad just threw his chair right at me. But
Oh
it
wow.
didn't go cross off. It hit the ropes and hit the cameraman on
Oh no.
who was on the outside. I felt so
Innocent
bad.
bystander.
Oh yes, and really genuinely innocent bystander. But it was crazy. But I couldn't become better while I'm there
Yeah.
because I'm running a promotion. I'm doing logistics. I would travel with the ring. I would set up the ring, start at like 8 in the morning because I designed and made the ring for our place. Nobody else knew how to set it up, so I would set it up with like two people. We would spend like 6 hours, and it's not a great ring because I made it. It's nobody specialist made it. So we
Yeah.
would like 6 hours to start up the ring, and it was a whole thing. And I always doubted myself because I don't know if I'm a good wrestler because I'm the one who's running first.
Right. There's no
I'm
one there that's critiquing you, right? Or
yeah
like
no,
pushing you or
yes. There's no
yeah.
competition,
Yeah.
and the only thing that makes you better is competition. In my view, the reason I chose Japan was because, like, for me to going to America and going to Japan is the same level of hardship. And I forgot to say this. When I was 19, I actually contacted a Japanese promotion and I sent him like my videos and stuff, and they go like, "Oh, you're good. How old are you?" I'm like, "I'm this is old," and they're like, "Ah, you're young. If you ever show up in Japan, let us know." There was a promotion called it was like a sub promotion of Freedom, which is like a deathmatch promotion in Japan, but they also have
Hmm.
normal wrestling. So there was like a promotion here, and they go like, "If you ever show up in Japan, let us know. I will definitely have you like train with us and stuff." I'm like, "Okay, but like I do want to come. Would you help me?" And they were like, "Yeah." So I talked to them, but I couldn't speak Japanese at all. So I had like my older brother, my cousin of mine had a Japanese friend. I talked to him, and they would do like translations for me, and I finally got like an invitation from Japan to like go to Japan. I'm like 19 and a half now. I've only done like 3 matches with my promotion, and I apply for a visa for Japan and got denied when I'm 19 and a half.
Oh.
With everything ready, just I the only thing I need at that point, which I realized later, is just a better passport so I could travel. But I had an invitation for like to train, be a part of the dojo, and then be like part of a Japanese promotion when I was 19. But they deny it, and I go, oh, I can. But when you get denied for a visa, you can't apply for like next 6 months for the same visa.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, even in 6 months, there's no way I can succeed. So I just started preparing documentations and like getting my statements ready. And I'm like, just for the next 2 years, I'm wrestling every week, every month, and I'm getting my preparation ready so I can apply for the visa one more time and be able to go to Japan. I took me 2 years just to have enough documentation that I can apply again. 6 more months for the process of applying for the visa. And in 2.5 years after I first got denied my visa, I was finally able to travel to Japan.
That's a hell of a journey right there. Just that by itself.
Oh yes. Oh, that too. Like I genuinely say that. Like nothing gets me down. I really nothing in wrestling gets me down because nothing is as down as those 2.5 years. Nothing is
Yeah.
genuinely like uh right now every day to me. This is by the way, I really didn't mean it as like a sob thing because believe me, I'm very happy. I
Yeah.
am very happy. Every morning is like, to me, is like the sun shines in my face. That's how I feel when I wake up every morning. Because I live in Japan. And not just now, I live in Japan for the last, accumulated together time, for the last 4 years. I left Japan once to go to, I went to like UK for 8 months in between to like just wrestle there. But overall, yeah, close to 4 years now. I
It's
speak the
awesome.
language. I can wrestle here 10 to 12 times, sometimes 15 times a month. I wrestle. No, I wrestle at a very wide array of promotions, and just the fact that I'm in Japan. Like even now, and
Yeah.
this will like this is very like because I'm imagining it right now. When you living is just living because I'm in my room sitting right now. These four walls are walls, no matter which country or where you are. If I'm sitting in a room, that room can be anywhere. It's just a room. There's just
Yeah.
four walls around me. But when I go out and I walk to my shows, if a show is less than 5 kilometers or like 4 kilometers, I always walk to my shows as long as it allow me because it really calms me down. And because I'm very busy, if I'm just genuinely am. I'm just very busy in Japan. It's starting when I just came here. I just got busy very fast. But even to this day, at least once a month or twice a month, I'm just walking, just genuinely, and I would see something, maybe just like a very cute little Japanese house, or a sakura tree, or a palm tree, or just a or something, and it just hits me. I have like every fiber of hair in my body just stands up. It just really hits me that I'm in Japan.
Yeah.
It's surreal to me. Like even like my hands are shaking right now as I'm saying that to you,
That's
because it
crazy.
really hits me like that.
Well, you work so hard to get there. You know, like you put so much into it. Like, I mean, just the like you said, that downtime when you were 2.5 years of getting denied, first of all, and then the 2.5 years of
And
like
I was happy when you were
reapplying for it
19.
and preparing and all that stuff. I mean, it's a lot of work, and you did it. You got to, got where you wanted to go.
Oh, it doesn't even like the crazy thing is, it doesn't feel hard to me.
Yeah.
Like thinking now, back now, yeah, it was like, it was what it was, but still, what I got out of it, and it's just your dream, right? Everybody has dreams.
Hmm.
Every day is like living a dream to me. Because what did I want? Like just say, I wanted to be working with wrestling, being in Japan, being surrounded by people who wants to get better and wants me to get better. I'm trying to be a better wrestler every day. That's all my energy. I want to be the best wrestler I can be. And that's where I can put my all of my energy. And people who are around me wants me to be.
Yeah.
Actually, they wouldn't even let me sit down. Like if I didn't try to be the best, that's when it would suck. Like that's the kind of environment I am in. And every day, just genuinely just being who I am is like living a dream to me. It's just like, of course I want to go higher. Of course I want to, like, there's a thousand things I want to do, but that's part of me being happy. I have so many things I want to do still,
Yeah.
and so many things I'm doing, and so many things I have to do. It's just, it's incredible. The life is incredible. It's for
We
me
can
right
hear it in
now.
your voice.
Yeah, you can.
And that's it for this week's episode. Thank you for tuning into our podcast. Stay tuned to next week's episode for part 2 of our interview with Gatomu's Baliyan Akki, where we will focus on the Japanese wrestling industry as a whole, his experiences within the many promotions in Japan, and the phenomenon that is known as ChocoPro. In the meantime, check out ChocoPro on YouTube to catch up on some of Akki's matches, or better yet, just follow him on Twitter at Baliyan X Akki, that's Baliyan X Akki, to see some of his great highlights and see what's going on in his life. Are you familiar with any of Japanese pro wrestling promotions? What's your favorite? Share with us on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Krewe of Japan Podcast. So Instagram at KREWEOFJAPANPODCAST, Facebook, Krewe of Japan Podcast, and Twitter is at KREWEOFJAPAN, Krewe of Japan. While you're there, give us a follow, like, retweet, share, comment, whatever floats your boat. Let us know how you're enjoying the podcast. Or perhaps, maybe you want to send us an email. You'd like to keep things a little bit more private. You can email us at kreweofjapanpodcast@gmail.com. KREWEOFJAPANPODCAST@gmail.com. Speaking of feedback, if you're enjoying this episode and the previous episodes and, looking forward to enjoying our next episode, please feel free to leave us a 5-star review on your favorite podcast streaming app. We're trying to get that rating still up, man. Come on, let's go. But seriously, any and all support, as always, is greatly appreciated. And that's it for today's episode. Come back for part 2 next week. Until then, see ya.